138 openings of wisdom. Kalach Pitchei Chachma by the Ramchal, by Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. This is opening 21. The action of the letters is, and I usually start off with some kind of Gematria, whether it's Hebrew Gematria or English Gematria. Today, the Gematria number for 138 is Gematria is his. The Gematria equals 74 in the regular English Gematria cipher, which is A equals 1, B equals 2, and then etc. Z equals 26, 26 letters, ordinally 1 through 26. Gematria would equal 74, is would equal 28, and his would equal 36. You put those three numbers together, and that gets 138, which is the number, the theme of this book, 138 openings. So Gematria is his. I try to match them. Any word or group of words, whether in English or in Hebrew, I try to match it to 138 because that's the title of this book. So Gematria is his equals Gematria is real equals Gematria is here. All of those phrases equal 138 in English Gematria. Opening 21. The action of the letters is completed by the musical notes, vowel points, and crowns. Note, in the Torah scroll, only the Hebrew letters, otiyot, are written, in some cases with crowns, tagin, over them. The associated vowel signs, nikudot, and musical notes, ta'amim, the cantillation marks, or trop, are unwritten, yet are also integral parts of the oral Torah tradition, the Masoret. The completion and perfection of the letters depends on the musical notes, vowel points, and crowns that are joined with them. All of them contribute, each in its own proper way, to the full and complete execution of the intended effect or action. However, the main action comes about through the letters. I have a question on this, and this question will probably link to other questions in the subject. Now that he mentions the musical notes, and that's, to me, that's sort of a loaded question, not loaded question, but it's sort of like begs the question in a way, what does he mean by musical notes? Because you go to 10 different congregations, well, maybe that's a little bit much, but you have the Sephardi sound, and even within, excuse me, maybe each sneeze was for the Sephardi and Ashkenaz, no, I was kidding. You go within the Sephardi world, I've seen different Sephardi communities, and then there's one sound that goes like this, like that's when they read the Torah, it's like that's kind of like a traditional Sephardi sound of laning, but then you go into Ashkenaz, it's a whole different song. So what does it mean by the Masoret? And also that's one question. How did those two, and those two that I did, even within the Sephardi, there's another one. It's Moroccan. Let me see if I can do it. Is it the one that I did before was like just classic Sephardi, like okay, and Ashkenaz would be like that, you know. And then there's another really well-known one. It's like Na 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 na. I got one note of it. Da na da na 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 da na da na. You know, if you know what I mean, yeah. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. It's something like that. It's like a Moroccan. Anyway, the point is that they're all in Masoret. Okay, so how do they all? So what was the original one, and how did they break off? And also, here's another question I have. Now that we're here, this is something that I noticed, and I'd love to hear your opinions. Okay, have you noticed that it's sort of like if you let's say you have the names of the trop, right? And I'm going for the Ashkenaz because that's how I grew up. Pashta muna zarka muna krivi ma'pak pashta zakev katon. Okay, if you listen to a rabbi in a speech, and let's just say this comes up, have you noticed on these words there's a ma'pak pashta here, and there's a revi'i there, or there's a shalshelas there? I've never heard Sephardic rabbis say this. For some reason, when people analyze the trop, I've only heard my entire life, I've never heard a Sephardic rabbi in their drasha, in their speech, say, did you know that there's an asnachta, atachna, right there, you know, or there's a kif katon over here. You know, I've never heard that. It seems like an Ashkenazic quality to darshan the Talmud, at least this day and age. Maybe in the past it was different. I've never got an answer for why that is. Why is it? Now, one thing could be clear, a reason, because the Vilna Gaon, who was Ashkenazic, would darshan. It says there's a munach zarka over here, or there's a kadmavi azla over here, and that's what this means. So maybe he set the precedent for this to be an Ashkenazic way of darshaning. But I've never to date, heard, that I can remember, heard a Sephardic rabbi, and I listen to a fair amount, not a lot, but a good amount, enough to know that it would have come up. They don't darshan the Tamim. And also, there are certain Tamim that the Sephardim, now that's another question. And another question is, in the Sephardic world, there are certain Tamim, there are certain cancellation marks that they will be makbid on, that the Ashkenazim totally are not gores at all, which means they don't even register it. For example, there's a psik tama begavayhu. There's a break, like let's say in the Yud Gimel Midos Rachmim it goes Hashem, or maybe, or there's, let's see, let me think, there's other places. And then these Ashkenazim don't do that. When there's a psik, they just read it like it's regular. And I wonder why that is. Why are the Ashkenazim not makbid on the psik? So these are questions that I would say, I mean, to say 10 out of 10 people don't have the answer would be presumptuous. But realistically, 9 out of 10 people, which is practically for me 10 out of 10 people I ask, wouldn't have any idea or know the reason. Even if they're about Koreh, they wouldn't know. Therefore, I just asked the question here, and so the question gets recorded, and who knows? Maybe I'll get the answer one day. So, if you have any answers, please let me know. Have you explained the letter? Okay, now going back to the text. See, I use this as a springboard to kind of bring out. That's why it's a reading and meditation. I have a lot of questions, a lot of things I've thought about, and I use the 138 openings of wisdom and maybe that's a really appropriate name, openings, because there are 138 things that can open me up. So they're openings. They can open up thoughts that I've had about these things. But all that whole litany of questions I just had before, litany, I guess, yeah, the whole battery, whatever, the whole series of questions I had came from him saying the musical notes. But I mean, when the Ramchal was saying musical notes, he was thinking differently than today as an Ashkenazic rabbi saying musical notes. We're not talking the same musical notes. So it doesn't seem to be monolithic, is what I'm saying. Anyway, let's continue. Maybe just musical notes means that any person with their tradition has their own set of thinking based on musical notes, and those can differ greatly between group to group. It's like saying the colors that you use to paint with. Now you can have 10 different artists and they have 10 different kinds of painting, but they're all using colors. So maybe that's what it means, that musical notes are just within the body of Judaism. You have there's a few, I forgot to mention when the Yemenite is totally different too. The Yemenite reading is different. I'm not even going to try to imitate it now, but I've heard it. Yemenite is different, Moroccan is different, Yerushalmi, Sephardic, Ashkenazic, and even within Ashkenazic you have some variations that it's like there's variations within Ashkenazic. Like here's one that I can tell you within Ashkenazic, very musical and more dry. Okay, here's the musical one. You'll know what I'm talking about. Da da na 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 da da na da da na. And then there's one like da da na 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 da da. But it's the same thing, but one is there, and many people do both. Na 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 da na da na 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 na. Right, that, and it's the same thing. Check this out. Da na 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 da da na na. It's the same thing, but the point is that I would say each of these things could be analyzed. Okay, maybe that's what he's saying here. He's saying the musical notes. We're talking about colors. 10 different people will have 10 different systems, but they're all using this thing called notes. Like colors, like someone who cooks is using a thing called flavor. That's another medium that conveys information. Flavor, taste, sound. So I think that's what he's saying here. Having explained the letters, we will now discuss the musical notes, vowel signs, and crowns that are joined with them. The completion and perfection of the letters depends on the musical notes, vowels, points, and crowns. Each thing has to be examined as an individual root in order to establish whether it is the main factor in itself or merely a component part that comes to complete the main factor, as discussed below. The main action is executed by the letters themselves, while their completion and perfection lies in the musical notes, vowels, signs, and crowns that are joined with them, all of which contribute as befits each one to the perfect execution of the intended effect or action. This is something we can see with our own eyes. As it is below, so it is above. Here, okay, this is different than what he said in a different opening. One opening he said it's not as above, as it is above. So maybe it was a different context there. He says, don't think that what's happening above there is what's happening here. And now he's saying, as it is below here, so it is above there. Okay, here below in this world, we see that the letters of the Torah are complete only together with their accompanying musical notes, vowels, signs, and crowns. So to above, the notes, vowels, signs, and crowns are bound up with the letters themselves and serve one and the same purpose. However, the main action comes about through the letters. Similarly, in this world, we also see that the written letters alone are sufficient to give us an understanding of the text. And I think that last line is gold. I think it's really important because it's in light of this whole darshaning that I was saying before, that basically, if you look at the letters, that's the not to be redundant, but that's the gold standard for meaning. Because when it comes to the ta'amim, like I said before, there's 5 different groups. You'll have 5 different kinds of musical systems. So which one is the real meaning? And another question that I had is that the Ashkenazim are the ones who are darshaning the meanings. I've never heard a Sephardi darshan the meanings. Of what is this? The Kadma V'Azla means this. I've never heard that. Whatever, it's my impression, imitation of a Sephardi rabbi. But anyway, I've never heard that. Please tell me if you have. I'd like to hear your opinions.